Did you like that? I came in like a helicopter. Don't try that at home. I'm a cartoon. I don't have gravity. If you've been following me for a minute, you know that I'm working on a video where I goof troop my way through Pokemon Ultra Sun as part of a larger project where I play all of the Pokemon games I missed after dropping the series in the 3DS era and make videos about them along the way. Yappity yap, preamble, schmeamble, I'll leave all the explaining of that whole project to that video. Let me just get to why we are gathered here today. See, when concepting that script, I fancy myself an intellectual, what with all 4 of the synapses that comprise my little hairy nervous system. I wanted to analyze all the Pokemon designs introduced in Gen 7 throughout the script. The problem is, I would sandwich all these pseudo-intellectual conversations about design in between my comedy gold jokes about waterboarding Sudowoodo and referring to these 2 quality characters as Gonoronzo and Herpetia. In short, it bogged down the script and it led to a lot of tonal whiplash that could cause the neck bones of a vertebrate like yourself to mimic the mating call of a vacuum running over a bunch of staples. But like, I already wrote analyses for like half the roster, and I have all this extremely biased and unreliable poll data that I gathered last year about what designs people like, and it'd be a shame for all of that to go to waste, so I had an aneurysm of genius. What if I chopped all of those bits out of the script and then haphazardly glued them together as a separate video, like some sort of verbal Dr. Frankenstein's bear? And that idea is what you're watching right now, and if you're thinking about leaving, it's too late, I've already locked your door. Overall, I think Gen 7 is where modern Pokemon design really hit its stride. Starting in the 3DS era, Pokemon started favoring quality of designs over quantity. Not to say that there's a ton of bad designs in older games, but there's definitely a lot of mystery meat in this hot dog, you catch 'em adrift. Here's another fish. Oh, but sometimes it's cinnamon flavored if you catch it in the Red Bull water. So starting in Gen 6, they cut the number of new additions in half, but made sure each one had significantly more tender love and care. Well, in Gen 6, they, tried, but hey, in Gen 7, they nailed it. They started to make sure every new addition had something to make it stand out from the crowd and play differently from Pokemon before it. As far as I'm aware, they've had mostly knockout designs since taking this design shift. I say this as someone who's never played the game where they straight up added a flamingo as a cameo from real life. Gen 7 is also where I find the best examples of Pokemon that are designed for their region. Almost every design here comes back to one of the game's 2 predominant themes. Hawaii, they're tropical, or oceany, or pollution-y, or a painful stereotype of a native Hawaiian, etc., etc. Or they're holy shit aliens, Pokemon from space, we are not alone, and they come in violence! And despite this central theme present in every design, this group never feels homogenized. Despite all of them being shackled to having to be something that would feasibly take place in a tropical paradise, we still get a pretty wide variety of concepts in Alolan Pokemon designs. So in honor of these stellar designs, here's what we're going to be doing for the next 20 minutes or so. I'm going to analyze the Pokemon evolution lines introduced in Gen 7 in order of shut up, it's my video, I can do what I want. I feel it's most appropriate to rate entire evolution lines because usually there's some overarching theme that really shines if you look at the whole family. I'll use my not a degree in design to objectively critique how the design scales on the Vibometer. In my opinion, a good modern Pokemon design has a cool, unique idea in its look, and it somehow reflects that idea in its ability, moveset, or stats. I'm also going to factor in how they fit within the context of the game they're in. For example, while a Pokemon that's basically just a woman to appeal to the Coomer demographic isn't inherently a bad thing as much as it makes my mouth taste like toothpaste and orange juice, this generation does it 5 whole ass times, and at least one of these feminine freaks has to lose some points about it. Today we're going to cover a majority of the roster, and at some unconfirmed point in the future we'll cover the regional variants, legendaries, and ultra beasts. Since each one of those groups has its own additional design theme that warrants its own section, and I don't want this to take 5 months like my StarCraft video did. And just like that StarCraft video, I'm putting all these designs on a tier list so I can make the algorithm do the J-Slug face when it sees my rage-baiting thumbnail where I put something clearly destined for A tier into F tier. I lied! No one will ever know! And also, just like that StarCraft video, F tier and S tier will be sparsely populated because bell curves make me drip a viscous oil. Now with that image firmly in your lobes, let's start with those little goobers you pick at the beginning of the game. A general theme amongst the 3 starters is a personality flip, changing personalities as they grow and mature. The seal that starts off as a goofy goober becomes an elegant mermaid by the end. The dapper boy gets really into My Chemical Romance, and the regular cat becomes an irregular wrestler by the end. This is in line with this game's whole general juxtaposition. It has stunningly beautiful, naturalistic Hawaii adventure that uppercuts your ass with the high-tech, dimension-hopping, alien-hunting, moon-heisting, sun-shisting sci-fi odyssey in the final act. I think it's only fair to analyze these starters within the context of one another and how well they execute the shared concept of maturation. The Decidueye line definitely executes this theme the best of the 3. Rowlet is the epitome of one design element selling an entire design. Like, look at this gross ass grass owl. Ew, gross, I hate it and I want to hurt it. Okay, but what if we dab him up a little? Now that is sublime. Now he's got a whole new personality. He's just a fancy little boy. He likes literature and chaseable charcuterie boards. This pairs greatly with actual domesticated owls who have this fancy little fucking gentleman aura. Okay, but now let's make him even fancier. Now he's a butler.
More cheese in your coffee, sir. Would you like to pair that with Chardonnay or Pigny?
But that little hair tuft reminds me of an overly pampered rich kid. You know, like one that's always dressed up for picture day, isn't allowed off the ground, and has never seen a minority not in uniform. You know what I mean, you've seen cartoons. Well, what do characters like that usually get? Decidueye gracefully pulls off this theme transition. It rejects the fancy life of the flying type and bow ties for the lonely, simple life of a mercenary, with his hood and his bow as his only friends. It's a harder life, sure, but it's free. Conversely, a silent hooded archer sniping from afar is a great pairing with a wild owl motif, quietly snatching prey in the night. And the wild nature of a spirit invokes vague images of native Hawaiian traditions. Also, maybe it's based off an extinct Hawaiian owl. I don't know, do I look like a game theory? Oh, that's a sad thing to say now. Litten and Torracat definitely have the weakest design of the three early forms. I mean, that's just a cat, and that's just a cat, but big. Don't get me wrong, I like cats, and they're certainly cute as far as cats go, but the cat design is definitely a little overdone, even, Jesus Christ, 8 years ago at this point in the series. There's not much to separate these two from something like Purloin. Sidebar, who the fuck decided that Purloin should be bipedal when it transitioned into 3D? This is awful. It's cool when Meowth does it because Meowth has goofy, big cartoon goober feet, but Purloin just has regular cat feet, yet it rejects them and stands up like a freak. And now we're stuck with this abomination forever because they're never updating these models, and I am owed a sack of blood as recompense. Going back to Litten and Torracat, I guess the color scheme, Litten's exploded tail, maybe Torracat's bell kind of invoke fire imagery, but it seems like these two are only fire type because they needed a fire type starter. They needed a means to an end, and what an end it is, baby, because it's Incineroar! This wrestler twist of the evolution line contrasts as the strongest design shift of the three final evolutions. He's a heel wrestler, which is reflected in his dark typing, but they've emphasized his devious smirk and his, well, what is it as posing as a performative dark type. He revels in being seen as a bad guy and loves to put on a good show. To tie it all together, his big signature moves are all wrestling moves. Darkest Lariat? Absolutely superb, you funky wrestler cat. And as a cherry on top, this all ties into the Hawaiian theme because this whole design is a reference to the Anawahi family of wrestlers. You know, the one with that rock guy in it. I definitely had to Google that, but cool, it makes my point for me. And then there's the Primarina family, and this is where I pack up and go home. Look, I kind of get the idea behind Poplio. Clowns are in circuses, sea lions are in circuses. Make him a clown seal, make him get off of being goofy and silly and doing backflips and honking. And there's a family of seals native to Hawaii. Sure, all that is airtight. And Brion is just more of the same thing. Still goofy, still silly, still honky. Like, hey, this pink frosted sprinkled donut has been delicious so far, but what's that I taste in my soft palate? Is that a hint of umami? Maybe a few drops of sweat fell on my donut? Oh shit, they put Clussy sauce on my treat. Things start to go south when we get to Primarina. I don't inherently have a problem with Goofy Clown growing up into a beautiful woman, but they didn't go far enough. Real question, why does Primarina still have a clown nose? If they had just kept the seal tail, I get it. Seals can be beautiful sea creatures as well as goofy showmen, but the nose, it throws the whole thing off. According to the poll I took, I might be alone in this since all three got a pretty even balance of the vote, but Primarina is clearly the worst design of the three for me. I will say it loud for the band kids in the back, clowns are not sexy. You stop, get the Clussy away from me. You people have a sickness. You freaks.
Hello, little Trump. You're gonna be a good assistant.
Hello, Big Trump. I can't wait to deport all the illegals.
Gen 7 starts off its roster by checking a few boxes. It gives us the early game rodent, the early game bird, and the early game bug. These archetypes of Pokemon are generally not very powerful, but they grow fast and they show off Pokemon raising mechanics really early on. And usually they will pick up some other utility later in the game. In previous generations, the early game rodent starts off okay, but then it drops off in the mid game. But it learns a whole bevy of HM moves later in the game to help you navigate the world, retaining some level of usefulness. But in Gen 7, HMs were officially axed, with their abilities relegated to ride Pokemon. As a veteran of the dark time that was pre-2016 Pokemon discourse, I regard this change as a good thing. I mean, it's probably best that slavery was removed from Pokemon. Look, Zoomer, don't judge me with those eyes. You weren't there. We were just following orders. It's what everyone else is doing. This is a bad joke. Can we just cut this part out? A byproduct of this change is that the early game rodent faces somewhat of an identity crisis. Trump weasels are as average of an early game normal type rodent as you can get. Their design is pretty basic, just a weasel with a hint of looking like a totem pole after they evolve. These are meant to be simple, easy to understand Pokemon. But because they can't learn HMs, they don't have any identity in the late game. They sort of make up for this by having Stakeout give it a niche in battle, but this is kind of an advanced strategy that doesn't come up a lot in a standard playthrough, so it goes against the simple design that the early game rodent is supposed to have. I think they were kind of unsure what to do with Trump Weasel's rodent world now that the world design had changed, and they fumbled a little bit with this design as a result. But at least it'll always be funny because they look like Donald Trump in a game that came out in 2016, back when that guy was still a joke in Fox News' eye.
I'm gonna come.
Like the rodent, the early game bird struggles for identity in Gen 7 since you're not pigeonholed into picking one up for fly anymore. However, unlike Trump Weasel, Gunburb refused to go gently into that mediocre night. Gunburb's solution to his identity crisis was to go all in on being a gun. While all three of them are beautiful tropical birds, their heads actually look like guns. Gunburb is pissed and packing heat, and with a skill-like ability, they shoot all sorts of ammunition like seeds and rocks and fury. Sometimes going all in on a simple concept is enough to make a Pokemon fun and memorable. Unless you get one with Keen Eye and you ruin it forever, why the hell would they even give them that ability? Of the early game generic Pokemon archetypes, the early game bug is the only one that didn't lose its job. And yet, despite not needing to, the early game bug in Gen 7 rejects the mantle it has been given. Usually, the early game bug is meant to show off evolution. They generally evolve really early on and become powerful for the early game, and then pretty quickly drop off. Instead, Grubbin evolves at level 20 into Charjabug, the best Pokemon in the game. Vikavolt? Who the fuck is Vikavolt? This boy is a bus! He's the bestest little cube buddy, and I love him. I want to stack a bunch of them on top of each other like a Lego castle. I want to buy a couch that has Charjabug instead of pillows. I want to put a bunch on my car's dashboard and make people turn their head in traffic to look at my Charjabugs. I want to get a little backpack carrier with netting on one side so I can take them outside on walkies. I want to build a mech out of Charjabug and march it to Capitol Hill. Cutie Patootie and its evolved form Cutie Bagooby are these little bumblebee dudes that just like hanging out and having a good time, vibing in their lane, moisturized. They sure are exactly what you think of when you think Bug Fairy. They heal their allies, they dance, they gather honey, they have dust. Honestly, I don't have a lot to say here. They're just self-evidently cute little guys. Not really my kind of cute. I'm more of a fan of goobers, and I wouldn't classify these two as goobers, but people seem to really like Cutie Bagooby in the poll I took, so who am I to tell them they're wrong? An archetype of Pokemon that I find myself getting really excited for is What If Animal, but Punch. And Crabrawler falls firmly into that category. It's like a coconut crab, only instead of using its massive claws to squeeze coconuts open, it just beats them to shit until their delicious innards become outards. It's got a lot of little pores from which it oozes personality. From the shiner it's got on its right eye, to the Iron Fist ability, to the animation stance where it's all like,
And you put 'em up, I'll knock your block off your mug.
really cool, solid design for a single stage Pokemon here. One of my favorites. Except, uh-oh, there goes Fuck Up Freddy on the design team fucking up again. What even is Crabominable? Crabrawler was a peak design, and some sick bastard decided that he needed to drink 16 ounces of goof juice. Don't get me wrong, I love me some goobers, but not everything needs to return to goober. He's like Eddie the doofy old Yeti. What does that have to do with crabs or boxing? These two have nothing to do with one another. He doesn't even have boxing gloves anymore. How did they lose something so perfect? This is like if you were playing Halo and it was like, hey, we got a better version of the shotgun for you, and the only difference is that every time you fire it, you forget how to read. Ugh, Crabominable gets the brown star for least improved. Oricorio is based on them Darwin birds on the Galapagos that are used as a showcase for evolution in the real world. You know the ones, you've been to 4th grade.
You know Darwin was in on this, right?
Oricorio is like them, only instead of what kind of beak it has, it adapts what kind of dance it performs depending on where it's from, or what kind of nectar it's recently sucked. The concept doesn't fully translate because what about Akala makes Oricorio a sex pest, but it is a fun call to that concept, and it makes Oricorio stand out. Each dance is from an entirely different culture, and the style and the energy in that dance is really well represented by the type. For example, the ballet style is a flamenco dancers, and flamencos are really spicy. That's why they're pink. Pom-pom style is a cheerleader, and like all cheerleaders, it receives an electric shock when it messes up a move. It even has the ability Dancer, which means it copies and uses any move that is thematically a dance. It's not the most useful ability in the world, but it's just fun, and it makes a unique experience to use it in a playthrough. This little guy just wants to dance. Pishposh is an interesting take on the basic fish archetype of Pokemon. Starting at level 20, Pishposh gains the ability to become an Academy form Pishposh, which is bigger and stronger, except when it drops to a quarter health, where it reverts back to a single Pishposh. It's just evolution, but you can lose it. As much as I love that they're trying alternative ways to handle evolution, like schooling, the problem here is that schooling doesn't stand out with a niche over evolution. Academy form Pishposh is crazy strong, sure, with the stat total nearing pseudo-legendary levels, but I can't help but feel like there was more to be done here. Pishposh also lost a lot of its teeth in the transition to Ultra Sun and Moon. Now that it's not a totem Pokemon, it kind of fades into the background since it's not in any major battles. Maybe it would have been better for it to have that level of stats at full health, but then incrementally lose stats as it gets weaker. As it is, it just feels like evolution you can lose.
Whoa.
Pass. Pass. That's a donkey.
Braden and its evolution Clydon are a kind of meh concept that's boosted into the stratosphere by a fantastic execution with its ability, Stamina. At least it is if you get one with Stamina. God damn it, quit kneecapping your own gimmicks with a secondary cop-out ability. If you're gonna build a Pokemon around an ability, then commit. I do not want a box full of goblin brain donkeys with own tempo. So, if you get a genetically correct Braden, it's a really great concept. Like its inspiration, the Clydesdale, it's a horse Pokemon built for endurance over speed. Everything about its design builds to this idea. Its move pool has moves like Counter and Iron Defense, which work best on a Pokemon with some longevity. The aforementioned Stamina ability lets it passively build defense buffs, and even visually, Clydon's leg warmers invoke images of joggers, who also prioritize endurance over speed.
Let's stop talking and do some walking.
And the leg warmers double as a visual of mud caking up on the horse's legs as it goes through rough terrain. It's a really solid, well thought out design. My only critique is that instead of a stupid ability like Own Tempo, it should have had a new ability that's in the same vein as Iron Fist that instead boosts kicking moves. That way, you could choose your ability and spec Clydon into either power or endurance, which is a way better way to mix up this Pokemon's design than Own Stupid Tempo. You could just have that one, Game Freak, just don't forget to credit me. I want to be next to Toby in the credits with a little gif of me looking at him and blushing. So Labo here is literally the first thing anyone would ever think of when designing a grass Pokemon on a region based in Hawaii. And it's a pretty easy layup. It's made of flowers like Roselia, it has a signature ability that protects grass Pokemon, a vast majority of its learn set has grass type moves, it's in the grass egg group, so of course it's pure fairy. Fuck up Freddy made this Pokemon. Like I've said a couple times, I did polls on all of these Pokemon about a year ago. During that part of this project, I gave a mini breakdown on my thoughts of each Pokemon, and I wanted to see if public opinion was different from my own. Those polls are still active if you want to go back and vote on them, by the way. Remind the algorithm gods that I live and breathe. On their poll, I didn't have great things to say about Bibby and Bubba spiders, mostly boiling down to, they're fine, but they're just a bug. At least it's a cool bug, those spiders that weave a little bubble around their head so they can go underwater, but it's still just a bug nonetheless. But after analyzing Bubba Spider's boss fight in Ultra Sun, I've really come around to these guys, and they're probably the ones on whom I've changed my opinion the most. The Bubba Spider totem fight is the one that most showcases what the totem Pokemon is capable of. During that fight, with just a little bit of setup, it combines its ability with Rain and Stab to hit you with a 120 power bubble. Not Bubble Beam, Bubble. That 20 power base move hits like a raw Hydro Pump. I think it's so cool that it annihilates you with Bubble in the boss fight and turns out it's a softball. It lets your head spin and wonder what this thing could accomplish in your hands with literally any other water type move. Water Bubble is the kind of ability that completely revitalizes otherwise bland Pokemon by giving it a niche power boost. With Water Bubble, Bubba Spider is a doubled stab, liquidation, rain sweeper that nothing can stop if it's set up properly, not even a burn. Bubba Spider is hype as hell, dude. Bubba Spider's the kind of guy to roll up to the party with a whole bag of barbecue shrimp, and everybody loves barbecue shrimp guy. Alright folks, get cozy, get a blankie, get a coffee, because this is going to be a long one. I have a lot to say about how they completely goofed the layup with Geodude and instead went cannonballing into the stands and killed 14 people. Geopup is the first split evolution of the game. It's a pretty fun idea that really gels with the whole night and day dichotomy in this game. You get a cute little rock puppy, and whether it evolves during the day or at night determines if it becomes a tamed rock dog or a bloodborne. Day form Geodude is more coordinated, learning great moves like Sucker Punch and the priority signature move Accelerock, while Night Form Geodude is objectively worse, getting moves like Counter and Taunt without the stats to back them up, but it's a great option if you're a furry. Easy peasy, pick which one you like, evolve your Geopup at the right time, and get that one for your team. Except you can't. I bamboozled you, you absolute buffoon. You just took a ride on the Rose Cruise. Because those evolutions are locked to what version you're playing. During my playthrough, no matter how many times I leveled up my Geopup at night, it simply will not evolve into Nightform Geodog, which really sucks because they took what could have been an interesting split evolution into a standard boring evolution that just happens in whatever version you're playing. If you're playing Ultra Sun, you might as well put Nightform Geodog out of your mind. It doesn't exist. Some NPCs glitched it into the game. It's a missing node. Don't touch it. You'll cover Saffron City and roofs. This is going to be a multi-part video series about multiple Pokemon games, so get ready to hear me beat this bitch drum a lot. Multiple versions of the same game are stinky. It's an antiquated concept that doesn't belong in the series anymore. It once had a purpose. In an age where the internet was covered in dancing baby gifts, having a different version of the same Pokemon game added a lot of discovery to the experience. We all know about the schoolyard effect in the red and blue days, okay? You've seen the internet. But this is the year of our Lord 2025. I can pollute the air with a car engine from my bed using the addiction rectangle. There is no reason for Game Freak to be selling two of the same game anymore. Even less reason for them to be locking Pokemon behind one of them. Well, there is one reason, but not if my guillotine has anything to say about it. For every version exclusive Pokemon, you no longer have an interesting engagement with someone else nearby. You've just created a, damn, I guess I have to go on the internet and get the one I actually want, only it says butt fart in Japanese characters. Great. I should be allowed to have the option to play Pokemon by myself with one copy of the game and have access to the full roster, especially when it's an evolution for a Pokemon I already have. I put in the work to get a Nightform Geodog. I should be allowed to have it. Wait, what? But I'm not in the right $39.99 plus tax universe. It's dumb. But would you believe it gets even dumber? That's right, Johnny. The sins of Geodog don't stop there. They refuse to be contained by one category of tomfuckery and instead use the old Venn diagram model of bullshit. For there is a third form of Geodog, more egregious than the first two. There is a Sunset Geodog, which is like a happy middle ground form. Well, visually, it's just Dayform Geodog, but orange. But its moveset and ability are much more tailored to making it the definitive version of Geodog. Except guess what? You can't have it. Sunset Geodog is the first of what we call event-exclusive Pokemon. This is once again something that I will piss and cry about repeatedly. It's another dumb concept that needs to die. When Ultra Sun came out, you could download a Geopup with the ability Own Tempo. This Geopup, and only this specific Geopup, would evolve into Sunset Geodog, the objectively best version of Geodog with its own special stink move. It's still not great, but if you want Geodog, this is the Geodog you'll want to get. But you can't have it. Its code is in the game, but there is no way to get it unless Game Freak holds an event that checks a box that tells a dude in the Pokemon Center to let you have it. Just why? Why? This could have been so cool. A three-way split evolution that's influenced by when you evolve them, with the best one being the shortest window to catch. That's rad. I'm engaged by it. The concept could have even gone farther, with Own Tempo being a rare Geopup that you had to go out of your way to find. Instead, all three forms of Geodog are segmented off as money traps. All that for a Geodog, the Pokemon equivalent of a highway side Arby's. Like, I'll take it, but I wish I had anything better. They butchered this Pokemon and ruined everything it had going for it. It just sours the whole experience. F tier.
Gubber.
There he sits, my little leafy Chad. What a handsome lad. That's my boy. PSIP pink scyther and pants. He's covered in ants. That's my boy. You can have your Hoyos and your waifus. You can have your zincs and proteins. I'll sit here with my little man near. I'll put him in his favorite jeans. Biding my time, feeding Gubber beans. This is Gubber. He's my son, my terrible son. I birthed him. He came out of me. Now, I know you're supposed to love all of your children equally, but fuzz that shiz. This bitch is my favorite. He spends all day slicing bugs and crabs with his sharp little hands. He's like a scyther, but little and cute. Look, on the day he evolved into Big Gubber, I stitched him a pair of pink corduroy pants. They're stretchy because they're made of my own hair, which is naturally elastic and filled with my love. Gubber and Big Gubber are self-evidently and inexplicably perfect, and if you disagree, the door is right there, Buster. Oh yeah, the door's locked. Well, I guess I'll just stab you.